Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijaccarana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro pulisa dhammasarati.
Okay, there's no question for the time being. I'd like to say something. But not everybody can practice the spiritual path. Why? Because we are all at different levels. Spiritual maturity is different. So those who are spiritually mature, ready to practice the spiritual path, they will practice the spiritual path either as a monastic or as a lay person. But there are some people, their blessings is so low that they cannot practice. They try to meditate and all that, their mind is very disturbed, they can't do it. Such people, they need to create more good karma by doing good deeds. For example, there are some people who work with this Serchi organization, do charity, help others. And some people do social work and all that. That's good. If you can't practice a spiritual path. But if you can, don't waste your human life. Because human life is very difficult to get. And this work that you do to help animals and all that, actually the merit is very little. In the long run, it doesn't help you very much. And you can't help these animals very much also. That's why the Buddha said in one of the suttas, the Buddha said a long time ago, he was a Brahmin who did a lot of dana. So much dana, he said that he gave away 84,000 buckets of gold, 84,000 buckets of silver, 84,000 buckets of precious stones, and 84,000 chickens, lamb, cattle, etc., and clothing and cloth and all these things. And the food and the drinks that he gave away, he said, flowed like the river. And he said, in spite of all that, his merit was negligible, very small. Why? Because the people who received it were all putujana, no arya around, all putujana. So the Buddha said it would have been greater merit if he had just given to one stream enterer, meaning a first path attainer. And the Buddha said even giving dana to 100 stream attainers, first path attainers, is less than the merit of giving to one sotapanna, one fruit attainer. So in other words, this first path attainer doesn't exist for one moment, for only one moment. He exists for many years. That's why the Buddha said that you can do dana to a first path attainer, but even you do it to 100 stream attainers, is less than the merit of giving to one fruit attainer, the sotapanna. And giving dana to 100 sotapannas is less than the merit of giving to one second path attainer, etc. So you see from here that actually if we help all these animals and all these putujana, the merit actually is not very great. And since it is so difficult to get a human body, if you can meditate, if you can practice the spiritual path, don't go and do these things because in the end it doesn't help very much. It's not that it's not good, it's good. But then for yourself, you pity others, you must also pity yourself. Right? You continue to do this, you'll be in the round of rebirths for a very, very, very long time. If you have the chance to hear the true Dhamma, try to get to attain the stream entry. Once you attain the stream entry, you've got the most precious thing you can get in this world. So that you're on your way out of suffering, out of samsara. So only those people who can't practice meditation, who can't hear the sutta. There's some people's minds are so disturbed, they cannot hear the suttas. Some time ago, many years ago, I had one old supporter told me about this auntie. This auntie had such a nasty temper, was such an unpleasant person. Partly because of the distribution of property. They had a grudge against the other relatives, always cursing their relatives. So because she was such an unpleasant person, so nasty, that the children in her old age put her in the nursing home. And even in the nursing home, she get into tantrums. So rage, such a rage, and nobody can control her. So one day when she was so old, about to die already, she got into one of these rage. And they had to call the doctor and give her a jab, tranquilizer, so that she could sleep. And then they phoned the children to come. So 3 children went to that nursing home. And this old supporter of mine, he happened to drive past the nursing home. He saw the cousin's cars there. And before I come to this, actually because this old lady had such a nasty temper and was such an unpleasant person, this old supporter of mine tried to help the auntie to give her Dhamma talks to listen and to ask her to do some chanting, simple chanting, just Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. But when she tried to do the chanting, she tried and tried, and she could not even chant Namo Tassa Bhagavato. She tried until the tears came down, and she told the supporter, I said, don't ask me to chant, I cannot chant. Karma so bad, I cannot even chant the Buddha's name. So, okay, coming back to that part now, where this old supporter of mine drove past the nursing home and saw the cousin's cars there. So he stopped the car, ran into the nursing home, thought the auntie had died. I went into the room, there were a few of them in the room, or 6 of them in the room, and he saw the auntie there, he got a shock. Because the 2 teeth came out, the 2 Dracula teeth came out so long. And they tried to close the mouth, they could not close the mouth, because the teeth were so long. And they could see the teeth for 2 days, until she died. The moment she died, the teeth disappeared. That means she had already turned into that type of ghost, that fierce ghost, because of her character so fierce. So you see, such people like this, don't ask them to meditate. Wasting your breath. Even chanting also cannot. So the only thing they can do is to do good deeds. So some people are so low that they have to do good deeds to progress spiritually. But if you can progress spiritually, don't waste your time. Our life is very short. We don't know when we are going to die. So the Buddha says all of us have cancer. The problem is, this the doctor didn't say, we don't believe. We don't believe that we have cancer. We think we still have a long time. But the Buddha already warned us, all of us have cancer. Anytime we can die. So don't waste our life. Actually, in the suttas, the Buddha said that he contemplated 91 world cycles. And since one world cycle is such a long, long time, for him to contemplate 91 world cycles, I believe he must have spent the whole night looking into the past. And during this time, 91 world cycles, the Buddha said he saw only 6 Sammasambuddha. We don't mention Pachika Buddhas because Pachika Buddhas are many. But Sammasambuddha only 6. And the 3 of them before our Buddha was on this planet Earth. Another 3 is before this planet Earth. in other world cycles. So later books talk about 24 Buddhas and 28 Buddhas, and in Mahayana you have 88 Buddhas and all this. It's all cooked up. Even this story, this legend about how the Buddha met the Pankara Buddha, all that also is later writing.
Which means to say, you were saying that the three previous Buddha actually was in this world cycle.
In this
Whereas the other three,
Yeah.
the first three was in like the last 90 world cycles.
Yes, yeah.
And these 90 world cycles only produces three
Yes.
Dhammavuddhas.
So you see, it's so difficult to meet the true Dhamma,
So is there any more Buddha coming?
Oh yes,
Just one more.
yes. So in this world, in this planet Earth, the first Buddha was Kapusanda Buddha, then Kona Gamana Buddha, then Kassapa Buddha, who was our Bodhisattva's previous teacher. Then you have Gautama Buddha. And then the Buddha said that on this planet Earth there's still one more, that is Maitreya Buddha, or Maitreya Buddha in Sanskrit, Milekut. He will come when human lifespan is 80,000 years. But he's not as fat as he is in Chinese image.
But then how come there can be like so few Buddha, Sammasambuddhas in the previous world cycles and then so many in these world cycles?
It's chance. So we are actually very fortunate. We look at our Buddha Gautama. He mentioned that in his previous life, he, as a human being, he had met the Buddha Kassapa. Okay. After meeting the Buddha Kassapa, and the Buddha Kassapa taught him the Dhamma, he must have attained stream entry. Because after that, he decided to become a monk. And after becoming a monk under the Buddha Kassapa, he must have attained the first jhana. Because when he came back as Siddhartha Gautama, as a small boy, he could attain the first jhana, right? So under the Buddha Kassapa, he must have attained at least the first jhana. In which case, he would have become this Sakadagami. Most likely, he would have been a Sakadagami. And Sakadagamins, they are reborn in heaven. So he was reborn in Tusita heaven. And after Tusita heaven, he came down to the human realm again. At that time, no more Dhamma. So you see, even though there are 5 Buddhas in the world, because the world, one cycle is so long that in between the Buddhas, there are gaps when there is no Dhamma in the world. So when he came back as a Sakadagamin, a second fruit attainer, according to the suttas, he has to enter Nibbana in that very life. He's like a ripe fruit, must fall, must enter Nibbana. So even without a teacher, and for no apparent reason, and his family was so rich, and having such a good life, for no apparent reason, he left everybody, his family, to renounce. That could only be possible because he was a Sakadagami. So after that he struggled and became enlightened, and then he got the flame of the Dhamma, kindled the flame of the Dhamma again. So even though you see we have Sammasambuddhas in the world, but there are gaps even on this earth when there is no Dhamma. It shows this one kappa, one's world cycle is so long.
Was it stated in the sutta how long the Buddha Sasana of this time will be?
No, but it's stated in the Vinaya books that different Buddhas, their sasana lasts a different time. And the reason for it, the Buddha says, is that some Buddhas, they teach little suttas and Vinaya. Some Buddhas teach a lot of suttas and Vinaya. Those that teach a lot of suttas and Vinaya, the sasana lasts longer. Also, the Buddha mentioned that when there is no more Sammasambuddha in the world, he has to depend on the monks, the later monks, to transmit the teachings. So those that transmit the true teachings will last longer. But those that transmit the wrong teachings will cause the sasana to die faster, pass away faster. And the Buddha mentioned there are 5 factors that lead to the disappearance of the true Dhamma. First one is disrespect for the Buddha. That means instead of thinking of our Sakyamuni Buddha, people prefer to pray to other Buddhas. And then the disrespect for Dhamma. People don't want to really investigate the real Dhamma, they investigate other teachings. Third one, respect for the Sangha. No respect for the Sangha. Maybe because the Sangha doesn't behave properly, and no respect for the Sangha. The fourth one is no respect for the training. This spiritual path is a gradual training. No respect for it. The last one is disrespect for Samadhi. So disrespect for concentration Samadhi also leads to the decline of the true Dhamma. A lot of people don't understand why Samadhi is necessary. You can only understand if you attain Samadhi. Because when you attain Samadhi, your seeing and knowing is at a much higher level. It's not that without Samadhi you cannot see and know. You can. It's like somebody at the bottom of the hill. He looks all around. He thinks the view is very nice. But when he climbs to the top of the hill, he looks different view. He can see much further. So in the same way, without Samadhi, you can know and see, but it's a shallow level. That's why the Buddha stressed on the 4 jhanas. The Buddha also mentioned in the sutras that when you attain the 4th jhana, all the myriad knowledges come automatically. That's why, because the Buddha had the 4 jhanas, when he wanted to contemplate the past lives, he could do it easily. Is there a possibility of arahants existing now? Yes. But then arahants and anagamins are very hard to find. Because for a person to become an anagamin and arahant, it is stated in the Majjhima Nikaya that he needs to have the 4 jhanas. That's why the anagamins are reborn in the 4th jhana plane. And the 4th jhana is a very high state, very difficult to achieve. Because when you attain the 4th jhana, the breath stops. Also, the Buddha mentioned that if a person attains these high jhanas, if he's a lay person, he will not want to be a lay person. But then, these jhanas by themselves is not enough. You've got to have the knowledge of the suttas. If you practice meditation until you are perfect in meditation, and you don't hear the Dhamma, you're just like Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ had great spiritual power. He could drive ghosts out of people's bodies, could cure the sick, even raise Lazarus from the dead, become alive again. But because he had no knowledge of the Dhamma, he was probably not an Arya. But somebody like Jesus Christ, if he had learned one sutta about the 4 noble truths, he would immediately become an Arahant. So we see the difference between having the 4th jhana and not having the 4th jhana. If you have the 4th jhana and you listen to the correct sutta, you can become an anagamin or an arahant. But you have no jhana at all, you listen to the same teaching, you can become a stream enterer, first path attainer. That's the difference.
And how come during Buddha's time there were so many arahants? Or when you read
Okay.
the sutta, one arahant after another.
You know why? Because you can find in the Vinaya books, when the Buddha wanted to gather his disciples, he went to look for specific persons. He didn't simply go to the marketplace and be cordial. Not selling medicine, not simply preach to anybody. He went to look for specific persons, and those specific persons he went to look for are those who practice the jhanas. For example, the first 5 disciples, because the Buddha had attained jhana, he would have taught jhana to his first 5 disciples. So when he went after enlightenment, he went to them. He didn't ask them to meditate, he just asked them to sit down and listen. And then he discoursed to them sutta after sutta. And after teaching the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, all of them became arahants. Then after that, he went to look for Yasa. Actually, he didn't look for Yasa. He made Yasa come to him. Yasa was an extremely rich man's son. And then every night he would be entertained by the slaves who would sing and dance for him. And he would be probably drinking liquor and all that until he was tired, he'd fall asleep. And the slaves would be so tired and they'd also fall asleep on the ground. So the Buddha made him wake up in the middle of the night. And then when he got up, he saw all the servants lying there, half naked, and with their saliva flowing out of their mouth, and the hair all loose. So because he must have been an ascetic in his previous life, they appeared like corpses to him. So when he saw them, he was thinking dukkha and dukkha. So the Buddha probably made him walk out of the house, walk to the city gates, and the city gates were all closed at night. But the city gates automatically opened. So he walked out of the city gates and walked in the direction of the Buddha until he came to the Buddha in the forest. And when he saw the Buddha, he said, dukkha, dukkha. Then the Buddha said, sit down here, Yasa. There's no dukkha here. And when he heard there's no dukkha here, happily he sat down. And the Buddha taught him the 4 Noble Truths, graduated discourse on the 4 Noble Truths. And after listening, he attained stream entry. The next morning, the father was worried, went all over looking for him until the Buddha came. The father came to the same place where the Buddha was. And the Buddha asked the father to sit down, and then taught him the same discourse. And the father attained stream entry. And the son, hearing it the second time, became arahant. Then after that, this Yasa's friends, there were 54 of them. They heard that Yasa had, after Yasa became an arahant, he did not want to go back to the house, so he became a monk, disciple of the Buddha. So when his 54 friends heard that he had become a monk, they were astonished. That's the richest man in town, the son has renounced. So they thought his teacher must be very special. So one by one they came to see him in the forest. And the same way the Buddha taught them the Dhamma. One by one they became arahants. If they had not attained the 4th jhana in their previous human lifetime, they would not become arahant just hearing the Dhamma one time. So it's because they were ascetics who had attained jhana. So after the Buddha had these 60 arahant disciples, then the Buddha asked them to walk different roads and preach the Dhamma. Then after that, the Buddha looked with his divine eye who to teach. And the Buddha saw 1,000 ascetics, external set ascetics called jatilas, matted hair ascetics. They kept their hair very long. And they lived by the side of the river. And they prayed to the fire. And they submerged themselves in the river water 3 times in the dawn and 3 times at dusk. But because they probably had cultivated jhana, then the Buddha went to them. And the leader, because of having attained the 4 jhanas, he had probably had some psychic power. He kept thinking to himself that he was an arahant. Then the Buddha stayed several weeks with them and showed psychic power until they were so taken up by the Buddha that all of them renounced to become the monk disciples of the Buddha. And after they had renounced to become his disciples, then only the Buddha taught them the Dhamma and discoursed 1 sutta to them, the fire discourse. After hearing the fire discourse, all 1,000 of them became arahants. So you see, these are special people the Buddha went to. The Buddha didn't go to the marketplace. If the Buddha was alive today, he would look with his divine eye. Somebody like maybe Albert Einstein, because Albert Einstein had very strong samadhi, he could do mathematical calculations in his mind, long mathematical calculations without writing it down. Could do it in his mind. So if the Buddha looked for such people, there's still the arahants in the world.
Okay. People always say that if you've attained jhana and then you're reborn as a Brahma, then because your lifespan is so long, you would have missed the next Buddha. What's Dante's comment?
Oh, that is sour grapes. People, you can't attain, cannot pluck the grape, you say must be sour. Because even, you see, like our Buddha, our Bodhisattva, when he was a pupil of the Buddha Kassapa, he renounced and practiced the Dhamma. And he was not reborn in the Brahma heavens, he was reborn in the Tusita heaven. You are reborn in the jhana planes if you absorb yourself in jhana day and night. But he probably had attained the first jhana, but he did not absorb himself in the jhana day and night. So even though he had attained the first jhana, he was reborn in Tusita heaven. And after he came down from Tusita heaven, also no Dhamma in the world. So even whether you are reborn in these Brahma heavens or in the Tusita heaven, you come back, still no Dhamma in the world. That's why now that we have the chance to hear the Dhamma, it's very important that we make use of it now. Don't think of future. You probably may not get a chance. Also, it is mentioned in the suttas that the Buddha said people who are reborn in the jhana planes, there are two types. One type, they don't know the Dhamma. So because they don't know the Dhamma, after they pass away from there, it is possible that you still go to the woeful plains. But the Buddha said, a disciple of his who has learned the Dhamma, if you are reborn even in the jhana plains, you have already become an Arya, you have attained stream entry, you never fall into the woeful plains. So never mind, slow boat. Slow boat out of samsara is still enjoyable, and suffering. We are only afraid of rebirth in the woeful plains. If you can be reborn in the heavenly plains forever and ever, why not? Isn't it? Nothing wrong to be reborn in the heavens. You're only scared of being reborn in the woeful plains. A lot of monks, like forest monks, they go to the forest and they meditate, and then they attain the jhanas. But many of them, they don't study the suttas. So only this combination of knowledge of the suttas and the jhanas can bring you out of samsara. So if you just study the suttas without attaining the jhanas, you can be a stream enterer, but you cannot become an arahant. On the other hand, if you only attain the 4 jhanas without studying the suttas, then you can have psychic power, but you are also not an Arya.
Say Sotapanna, how do we know that a person has achieved that level? Other than negative sort of negative action, then only we know he is not, or we don't know he is.
Okay. The Buddha said that if a person has become a Sotapanna, he has unshakable faith in the Buddha, in the Dhamma, in the Sangha, and he has Aryan Sila. Okay. Many years ago in Penang, we had one lady, people thought that she was an Anagamin. But after many years of meditation, she just gave up Buddhism and changed her religion. It shows that even stream entry she had not attained. So this is the first thing mentioned in the suttas. Second thing mentioned in the suttas is that if a person is a Sotapanna, he has the vision of the Dhamma. He has seen the Dhamma. If a person has seen the Dhamma, then he sees no security in this world. No security in this world. Even in the heavens also no security. So then he will understand that the most precious thing in the world is the Dhamma. And the most meaningful thing to do as a human being is to practice the Dhamma. In which case, he will turn away from worldly things. It's not like some Mahayana books say that person is a great bodhisattva, but he goes to the karaoke and he goes to the pub and all that, living like a lay person, and yet he's a great bodhisattva. Not like that. Once he has become an Arya, he will turn away from. If previously he liked to go to the races, go and enjoy worldly things. After he becomes an Arya, his direction is on the spiritual path. And then he will, because he doesn't join his friends in all this worldly entertainment, his friends will think he's sort of gone funny. So that's the price you have to pay. People think you're a bit funny. Okay, another thing mentioned in the suttas, once a person has become Sotapanna, it is mentioned that he becomes independent of others in the Buddha's dispensation, in the Buddha's teachings. That's a very important statement. He becomes independent of others in the Buddha's teachings. In other words, he does not look for a teacher. Nowadays, you find a lot of people chasing after Ho Liao Su all over the world. You don't have to. The Buddha says, after he has passed into Nibbana, take the Dhamma Vinaya as your teacher. And the Dhamma is defined as the suttas in the Nikayas. So if you only take the trouble, if you only take the trouble to really study the suttas, you will see the Dhamma, the vision of the Dhamma. In which case, you won't chase after teachers anymore. You will know by yourself the way out of samsara. You will practice according to all the Buddha's instructions are in the suttas. In fact, the Buddha's instructions in the suttas are so clear and so practical. You cannot find a better teacher than that. In fact, nowadays there are many teachers who teach wrongly, probably because they are not so familiar with the suttas. And there's a lot of wrong teachings. I was told recently they had this Vachana conference. Bante Ji, Bante Gunaratana, he says there's a lot of wrong teachings being taught in Sunday school nowadays. See?
Bante, let's say for a lay person, how do you consider him is in the stream, first part stream? First part is in the first part. How do you consider him? Does it mean that he read the Nikaya or?
Oh yes, a person who attains stream entry is a person who has attained right view. Right view. Once you attain right view, you are an Arya, one of the 8 Aryas. And the way to attain right view is mentioned in the suttas, in the Majjhima Nikaya 43. The Buddha said there are only 2 conditions to attain right view. And that is listening, the exact words used by the Buddha is another's utterance. That's why people don't study the suttas, you don't catch the significance, Another's utterance, That means you have to hear the Dhamma from outside to attain right view. You cannot get right view by practicing yourself. It's impossible. But nowadays, a lot of meditation teachers tell you that the way to attain Sotapanna is by meditation. It's not by meditation. The Buddha says another's utterance. You have to hear the Dhamma from somebody else. For example, from the Nikayas. You study the Nikayas. That is the first condition. The second condition is Yoniso Manasikara. Simply translated, it is proper attention, thorough attention. So you pay thorough attention when you study the Nikayas or when you listen to the Dhamma talk. Then you can get right view. And once you get right view, you are an Arya. Another thing I like to mention here, a lot of people don't realize, is there's one sutta called the Sarakani Sutta. In this sutta, this Sakya by the name of Sarakani, he passed away. And after he passed away, people asked the Buddha where he was reborn. And the Buddha said, Sarakani has become a Sotapanna. So he has gone for a good rebirth. But because this Sarakani was a drinker, must have drank a lot. A lot of people disbelieved the Buddha. They were very angry. They say, how can this drinker, Sarakani, be a Sotapanna? If he can be a Sotapanna, everybody can be a Sotapanna. Because they considered he had broken the precept. Then the word came back to the Buddha, and you know what the Buddha said? He said, why should not Sarakani become a Sotapanna? Buddha said the Sarakani had followed the Dhamma for a long time, had learned the Dhamma for a long time. And then the Buddha said what, very surprisingly, the Buddha said, look at these trees. These trees, they could, if they can understand what I say, even the trees can become Sotapanna. What is the significance here? The Buddha said, if the trees can understand what I say, the Buddha didn't say, if these trees can meditate, they become a Sotapanna. The Buddha said, if these trees can understand what I say, so the word, the word to catch here can understand what I say. So, it shows the way to Sotapanna is listening to the Buddha's words, not meditation. If it's meditation, the Buddha would have said so, right? But the Buddha said, if you can understand what I say.
Does it mean that we don't need to contemplate?
When you listen, of course, being an intelligent person, you naturally contemplate, but it is so fast that you can do it so fast. Our mind is depending on how clear your mind is. If only we take the trouble to study the suttas again and again. Of course, the first time you study, you might find it hard to understand. Initially, when I studied the suttas, I find many things I could not understand. But I kept studying it again and again and again and again, and so many times, and then slowly things become clearer and clearer. It's just like a jigsaw puzzle. You put a few pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, and you cannot see the overall picture. Keep adding, and very soon you can see the overall picture. That's why the Buddha calls his disciples savakas, hearers, listeners. He didn't call them meditators or yogis. He called them hearers. And also in the suttas, it's mentioned, the Buddha said, if you want to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, you must start with right view. And not start with meditation, start with right view. The right view will bring you to right thoughts, and right thoughts will bring you to right speech, etc. You have to see that person, that particular person, how he can be helpful. There are some people, if you give them the Dhamma talk to listen, they might want to listen. But if they are not interested in the Dhamma talk at all, then you can maybe ask them to do some dana, some charity.
Can you represent them?
Yes, but you must tell them, if you represent them to do some charity.
How about if we do chanting and then send the merit?
No, you don't have psychic power in the first place.
I thought chanting is a good merit.
Chanting is not so important in the Buddha's teachings.
That means the Dhamma is not important.
Yeah.
Other than Dhamma,
Sila, keeping the precepts.
that means the patient itself
Yeah, the patient itself, not you keep the precepts for him. You eat for him, he won't eat food.
Okay, if let's say a person who has done a lot of evil actions, but towards the end of their life, they try to have wisdom thoughts, will that person actually born into the worldly things?
Not likely, because you cannot control your last thoughts. You know why? Because the doctor, after some time, will say this person is clinically dead. And he comes to that conclusion because you have no more breathing and your heart has stopped. But then, if your body is still warm, you're still not dead. And normally a person's consciousness will continue for a few hours. During that time, when your consciousness is still flowing, you're not conscious of the outside world. You're like dreaming. And those last thoughts, you have no control at all. It depends on your everyday karma. If every day you have been thinking good thoughts, thinking lofty thoughts about the Dhamma and all that, and because of meditation your mind is tranquil and all that, when you die, in those moments those thoughts will arise. But you are still always thinking of the share market and all that, horses and racing and all that. Then when you are dying, all those thoughts will arise. So your everyday thoughts are very important. So that's why we have to practice the spiritual path and have a lofty thoughts.
So it same goes apply to those who are in coma before they die. They also cannot control their thoughts.
Cannot. There's one lady told me the mother died of cancer, and at the moment of dying, because the pain was quite intense, her face was contorted with pain. You could see she had a painful expression. But 1 hour later, she found that the mother was smiling and very happy with a very bright face. That means she had a good heart. She was thinking of good thoughts. Yes, you can ask them to
Because
let
I'm
go.
very torturing already.
Yeah.
Peace is still grasping too much.
Yeah,
Can we ask them
of course.
to let go?
Yes, but it's not for sure that they will let go. And you know why they don't let go? Because of fear. Normally the karma is no good. They see ghost relatives coming and all that, because they'll be scared. And some are even worse, they see hell. So there was a case many years ago, one of my old supporters, the husband was sick, very sick, and the doctor predicted that he would die in 3 months' time. But after that he didn't die, and then continued to live on. And the old lady sent the daughter to call me and another monk to go to do some chanting. So when we went to the house, we saw him so thin, all bones and skin, and his mouth was open, could not even close his mouth. And still he was clinging to life, because he didn't have enough good karma. So we did some chanting for him, and after that we left. Within 1 or 2 minutes after we left, he passed away. So you see, when some people like that, they are afraid to go. And when they hear some monks chanting for them, they like have some reassurance. So then they let go. So it's not easy to let go. Not easy at all. That's why the Buddha said, when a person is dying, that person is afraid for a few reasons. One is because of the evil karma that person has done. Probably will be reborn in hell or in the animal realm. Second one is not enough good merits, not enough blessings, that person will be reborn in the ghost realm. The reason is attachment to the property or the wife or the family. Another reason is not knowing the Dhamma. When you don't know the Dhamma, you don't know what's going to happen to you. If you know the Dhamma, I know for sure. These are the 5 places I can go to. So if you're a smart Buddhist, you aim your rocket in this direction.
So Bhante, if let's say in pain and in distress, a lot of people die in sort of heart attack or all sorts of suffering. So you can't watch your rising, falling, you can't watch your breath. Don't you think the best way then is Buddha?
No, even that also, as I mentioned just now, once you become clinically dead, after that your thoughts still carry on.
Not clinically dead yet. What I mean is, do the children or what sort of try to counter that? Say Buddha, because you cannot watch rising, falling. What I mean, the mind is distracted. So you can't watch your rising, falling, you can't watch your breath, it's too subtle. So Buddha, Buddha, say Buddha, Buddha, Buddha.
You can do anything, but then what is most important, I was trying to stress, is your everyday mind. Your everyday mind will determine your last thoughts.
So I guess that momentum cannot be controlled.
Cannot.
It is your build-up momentum.
Yes.
But what if someone who passed away at a very old, rightful age and peacefully, and then, but those few months of life before that, they really have their amnesia, they cannot remember things. What do you think even someone who has been practicing the Dhamma, when they come to that stage of life, do they still know the Dhamma while waiting for death to come? What would be in their mind then?
Still the same everyday
But
thoughts.
they won't have, they cannot remember the Dhamma because they're
No,
old,
they
they cannot
don't
remember
remember the
things, you
Dhamma.
see. What do you think is that?
On the conscious level, they may not remember the Dhamma, but
Yes.
in their deep consciousness, they would know.
Because they cannot remember people, the relatives close to them, they cannot recognize.
But in that case, I think it's basically something to do with the brain, not the mind. The mind and consciousness and the brain are two separate things. The dementia, this thing is the brain, the physical functioning.
Yeah.
But I think the mind is still very clear. I think the mind is still very clear. If you have been practicing Dhamma and meditation. The mind and the brain are two separate.
Yes. You see, like last night in Ajahn Sumedo's talk, he mentioned something which struck me was very good. He said, somebody asked him about this anger and all that. And so he said, when it mentioned one incident that he could not agree with a monk, and he had a lot of problem with this monk, and they sort of hated each other's guts, to put it bluntly. So one day they had this meeting for this Ajahn Chah monasteries, Western monks, and he knew that this monk was coming. So he was very agitated. I'm not going to meet this monk again in this meeting. And all that, the anger, all the hatred came up. So he decided to go to his room and write down all the unpleasant things about this monk. And he wrote, he said 3-4 pages. All that anger, resentment, everything, what he calls vitriolic. So he wrote until he ran out of things to write. Tried to add one more thing, also cannot. Then he thought to himself, and what else can I say about this? What else? What other feelings do I have of this monk? Then he realized that it was metta, loving kindness. So below all our conscious thoughts, actually, like this metta is natural to us. This loving kindness is natural to all of us. You see, like Mother Teresa, even though she doubted that God existed, she did all this work for all the poor people, not because of God, but because it's natural to her to love others and to help others. So actually this basic feeling in us is there. But the anger and all that arises out of conditions because of ill-spoken words and all these things. Then the anger suddenly arises. But actually underneath it is this loving kindness towards all beings. So we must not only focus on what is thrown up in our mind, what is basic underneath is there. So in the same way, like if a person is dying, he might have amnesia and all that. That basic state of that mind, if it's a good mind, it's a good heart, that is what will bring you to a good rebirth. All of us, we have a conscience. If only we listen to our conscience, just keep quiet and listen to our heart. But all of us, we take our thoughts too seriously. These thoughts, our thoughts actually arise out of the ego. selfishness, and we want to protect ourselves. So this thinking mind is our best self-defense system. But it is not lofty, it is a calculating mind, a cunning mind. But underneath that is what we need to look for. So we need to listen to our conscience more, listen to ourselves. Like praying, sometimes we last time I came from Catholic school. So during recess time I used to go to the chapel and pray. And we pray very deeply. Actually, what are we calling out to? Who are we praying to? Actually, we are going deep into our mind. We are calling out to our mind deep inside us. And the one that answers us is also deep inside us. Okay. And
สัทธา